The author Krish Voss was a lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. He has experience of negotiating dozens of high-stakes cases with kidnappers, terrorists, and even bank robbers. And if you find yourself failing to convince your partner to go try the new restaurant or convincing your boss that you deserve a raise, then this is the high time to learn how to master negotiating from Chris Voss. I truly believe we all need to learn how to negotiate. And it's a very important skill because negotiating is not only for few big business people that are making $1 million deal. Whether you know this or not, you are negotiating every day with your spouse, with your friends, your boss, or even with your kids. Let's first understand how not to negotiate. Most people do want to treat other parties to be fair and charge what's right. But there is a problem with this strategy. We humans have multiple unknown biases which blur our decision-making process. For example, people tend to value items that they own more highly than they would if they did not belong to them. This means that sellers often try to charge more for an item than it would cost otherwise. Basically, people make decisions based on their emotions and try to justify them with logic. For most people, negotiation is not an analytical process at all. So dumping your counterpart with lots of facts and data isn't going to help you. Chris shares, in order to get what he wanted, avoid compromises and make the other sides feel fair, he always focused on tactical empathy. A tactical empathy is the act of empathizing sincerely with your counterpart's situation and then getting them to empathize with yours. So how do you do that? The first step in every negotiation is building a rapport. Your goal as a negotiator is to establish trust by getting the other side to see you as welcoming, perceptive, insightful, and warm. You are not there to bully them into submission and bury them with facts. You are there to empathize and help them see that solving your problems solves their problems too. It all starts with active listening. If your counterparts feels heard, they will listen to you. In fact, they will only reveal their true motives and reasons to you after you have gained their trust. To do that, you need to become a master of active listening. To demonstrate that you are actively listening, Krish gave a simple but effective tactic called mirroring. You simply reply using the last 3 or 4 words or the most important word of what the other person just said, which instantly makes the opponent feel heard and understood. Additionally, mirroring allows you to gather as much information as possible from your opponent and keep them talking. By repeating back what people say, you trigger this mirroring instinct and your counterpart will naturally elaborate on what you just said and sustain this connection. Krish provides an example of effectiveness of mirroring via a study with waiters. Psychologist Richard Wiseman found that waiters received on average 70% more tips when they mirrored the order instead of just saying excellent or okay. So now the next part is summarizing and labeling what they have just said. Take out all the judgments and your own opinions. Instead, understand what your opponent is feeling and verbalize that emotion. This technique helps to calm the counterpart down and helps begin effective negotiating. Krish further explains, you don't have to agree with them or like them to gain their trust. You don't have to feel their pain. You just have to label it so that they feel being heard. For example, one of Krish's students, Susan, was a sales representative for a pharmaceutical company. It was her intent to get a doctor to switch one of the drugs he was prescribing to his patients with the drug she was selling. The first time they met, the doctor was cold and skeptical. He said nothing would convince him to replace the drug he was already giving to his patients. Although Susan has a bad start, she gradually realized that the doctor genuinely cared about his patients. He appeared to have warmer tone of voice and body language when he talked about any of his patients. Susan pointed this out. She said, "You seemed very passionate about treating your patients. I can see how hard you work to customize each patient's treatment to their specific needs." The doctor paused and looked at her as if he was seeing her for the very first time and said, "That's right." Krish explains, that's right is the goldmine for any negotiator. The goal of summarizing and labeling is to get to the point where your counterpart will say, "That's right." From that moment on, the doctor let down his guards and was willing to listen to what Susan had to say. The doctor went ahead and told, "I feel like I'm treating an epidemic that the other doctors are not picking up on," which means that a lot of patients are not getting treated adequately. When Susan brought up the positive attributes of her products, he listened closely. By the end of the meeting, the doctor said he was open to trying the new medication and he just placed an order. Krish says, a negotiation doesn't truly start until you hear the words, "That's right." The best way to get your counterpart to say the word, "That's right," is to listen to the emotion behind your counterpart's words. Your goal is to spot some cares and concerns that are regarding the negotiations and then summarize those cares and concerns with a concise statement that starts with, "It seems like," or "It sounds like." For example, "It seems like you are really concerned about blank," or "It sounds like blank is really important to you," or "It seems like you don't like blank." The advantage of starting your statement with "it seems like" or "it sounds like" is that even if you are wrong, you won't damage the conversation. Since you can follow up with, "I didn't say that's how it was, I just thought it seems that way." But if your counterpart confirms your summary statement with "that's right," then it's time to get them to empathize with your situation. The most important job of any negotiator is to create an illusion of control. Your counterpart must always feel he owns the control and he is the one who is empathizing with the situation as a token of reciprocity. And you do that by asking calibrated questions. These are open-ended questions which have two goals, either to get more information from the other person or to ask his help to solve your problem. These questions help you build the rapport and prompt them for longer answers. For example, asking your counterpart, "What are we really trying to accomplish?" or "What are the core issues here?" Such questions give you time to think more and reveal more info, which you previously might not have known. These small revelations might give you huge leverage over them. Krish says, "How am I supposed to do that?" is the ultimate calibrated question. The landlords of Krish's student once wanted to raise the rent from $1,800 to $2,000. Instead of just saying no, he decided to negotiate for the best deal. Other properties in the same area had offers ranging from $1,800 to $1,950, but none were as good as his. He decided he don't want to pay more than $1,830. He sat with his real estate agent and started the conversation by pointing out he always paid on time. It would be sad for him to leave, and sad for the landlord as well to lose a good tenant. "I fully understand you have a better location. You just want a fair market price." See, here he is empathizing with their situation, with summarizing and also labeling that they want a fair market price. Then he says, "But how am I supposed to accept it when I can move a few blocks away and stay for $1,800? This was his first calibrated question. The agent said, "Well, this is a good deal. I can go up to $1,950 a month. $150 a month means a lot to me. You know, I am a student. I don't know. How am I supposed to pay $1,950 a month when I only make enough money to afford $1,800 a month?" Another calibrated question. Then he says, "To me, it seems like you would rather run the risk of keeping the place unrented. This is how you got leverage without even getting aggressive." The agent answered, "No, it's not that." Then the agent himself revealed that his leaving would open the landlord to the risk of having an unrented apartment and the cost of repainting. 1 month of unrented would be a $2,000 loss. Now he has the information that he doesn't have before. He said, "I will bring it up to $1,810. And I think this works well for both." The agent shook his head. "This is still lower than the market, sir, and I cannot do that." He went silent for a while and then asked the agent for a pen and paper. He then began some fake calculations to seem like he was trying really hard. Finally, he looked up at the agent and said, "I did some numbers and the maximum I can afford is $1,829. Now the agent seems positive. He said, "Wow, $1,829, you seem very precise. Listen, I value you wanting to renew with us, and for that I think we can make this work for a 12-month lease." See, the key is to say, "How am I supposed to do that?" is in the same way you would say, "I value your intelligence. Can you please help me solve my problem?" You can expect your counterpart to do one of two things. Either come up with a creative solution so that both of you could get what you value most, or adjust their initial demand to match yours. If they took option 2 but still give you an offer that doesn't meet your needs, you simply respond with a slightly different calibrated question. And most important, offering an odd number works amazing. It has a psychological impact. Your counterpart will feel that he has squeezed you to the point of breaking. Few people just feel great when they thought they've got the best deal. This process of negotiation can be summarized in 4 steps. Step 1. Set your target price, your goal. Step 2. Use lots of empathy and different ways of saying no to get the other sides to counter before you increase your offer. Step 3. Use different calibrated questions to know more and giving them the illusion of control. Step 4. When calculating the final amount, use precise non-round numbers like say $37,893 rather than saying $38,000. It gives the number credibility and weight. This was the condensed version of book Never Split the Difference. This is a great book for anyone who want to master negotiation. I highly recommend this. Well, all of you know and understand that making such videos takes a lot of time and efforts. So if my efforts are adding values to your life, consider sharing this video with at least 3 people. Subscribe to my channel and buy me a book. Stay tuned because I will keep uploading such mindful content which helps you in improving the quality of your life.